Hello, everyone, and welcome back to our On Point podcast. I'm Mark McKee, the head of Viewpoint School, and this very special episode is brought to you by the Schumann Family Foundation. Today, we're talking about why the mental health and well-being of our students matters, how educators are addressing it, and why it's capturing the attention of private and family foundations, including today's sponsor, the Schumann Family Foundation. Together, we're navigating the wellness crisis affecting young people across the country. Now more than ever, proactive programming and resources in schools with a focus on the whole child is critically important. So I'm excited to have Rebecca Heller with us today. Rebecca is our Director of Student Wellness for TK through 12 at Viewpoint, and she's been working at Viewpoint School for 14 years. She began her journey here as a Senior Associate Director of College Counseling and transitioned to her current role in 2021. Rebecca, thank you for joining us.
I'm so pleased to be here.
I'm very excited to talk about the work you've been doing in wellness and what we might see about the future. So let's start by sharing more about your current role at Viewpoint. What does this role, Director of Student Wellness, entail, and why is it becoming increasingly important in schools?
So it is such a joy to be the Director of Student Wellness at Viewpoint School and get to work with our students from TK to 12 with all age and developmental levels of children is so exciting. When I think about my role, I really think about developing and overseeing a strategic and comprehensive whole school wellness program. And when I talk about wellness, I think about what I say to the primary school children when I go see them. I come in and I say, I'm Miss Heller, I'm the Director of Student Wellness. What do you think I do all day? And their answers, I wish I could have them all on a plaque. They sometimes say, oh, you're the lady who talks about feelings, or, oh, you're the calm down lady, or you're the lady who teaches us yoga. And what I say to them is, when I think about wellness, I really think about being healthy in body and mind. And so I think about both their physical health and their mental health and the connection between the two.
That's amazing. In other words, it sounds like you envision student wellness as a holistic thing, mind, body, spirit, not just any one part of that.
Absolutely. And also, I think we're thinking about teaching those skills to students, right? So it's not just that we have those parts of ourselves, but teaching them active skills to every student in order to take care of their mind, body, spirit.
I don't know that when I went to school, anyone was teaching me those skills in an explicit way. How about you?
Yeah, no, I can't imagine. I remember having touches and loving those moments, right, where we got to talk about ourselves or think about our feelings, but it was few and far between. I think it was like a weekend event that you had to sign up for.
Yeah, I think we probably all knew the teacher who was really good at this.
Yes.
But they were really meant to be teaching us math or English or whatever was the lesson of the day. And just because of who they were, it became a part of everything they did. But this is now something separate and apart and special.
Yeah.
That you're bringing to us. And I heard the word strategic.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll ask a little bit more about that. In 2021, Viewpoint rolled out its first ever comprehensive TK to 12 wellness program. And we've been expanding our initiatives ever since. This was made possible by the Ford Foundation grant that we received in 2020. We collaborated on that grant. That was an amazing thing. The Ford Foundation is one of the only foundations nationwide that supports independent schools, and they really saw this as an opportunity to invest in a school that would be a leader in this area. So can you share some of the initiatives that this grant helped kickstart?
Yeah, I think it really allowed us to begin to coordinate initiatives across the divisions. We have 4 different divisions here at Viewpoint, and everyone was doing things well, but they weren't aligned or coordinated. And so this allowed us to have sort of a bigger picture, be able to start to create scope and sequence and common language among the divisions so that not only could we meet the children's needs developmentally, but then we could also build upon those skills each year to bring them to a place where they could have skills that'll last a lifetime.
Can you
Yeah.
give me an example of that? I'd love, like, what's a skill that you're teaching that builds throughout the years?
Yeah, so I think about emotional intelligence, right? We go down to primary school and start talking about feelings and being able to name them and that all feelings are valid. We talk a lot about self-management and self-regulation, right? When I mentioned they call me the calm down lady because I'm teaching myself and Lori Henning, who's our middle school counselor, push in our primary and lower school to teach skills to regulate ourselves and calm ourselves down and calm our nervous systems when we get heightened. So
That's great.
yeah.
Looking back, thinking about 2020, I'm really reminded of how we started baking wellness into our strategic plan all the way back to 2018. And our strategic plan, which evolved into this World Ready Promise, had this notion of wellness, or at the time we were saying social emotional learning, reinforcing the academic program. I remember at the time that some of our families were questioning, what's this emphasis on social emotional learning? Does it mean you're diluting the academic program? We're a traditional academic college preparatory school. At that time, you were in our college counseling office. And so, in fact, I was sharing with you that right outside our studio here are our Viewpoint magazine covers. And the cover of Viewpoint magazine in the winter of 2018 said, "Making the case for social emotional learning." And I remember talking with the editor of the magazine about, her choice in that headline and that we really needed to make the case for it. Do you need to make the case today?
I think because of all of the news that's going on in the world, right? We saw, as we came out of the pandemic, we saw a crisis in adolescent mental health. And so I don't think we need to make the case anymore. I think we're living it, and we need to be actively involved in solving and coming up with real initiatives to support our teens and children and adolescents. And so, do we need to make the case anymore? No, I think it's about building in the support and making sure the students know how deeply that we care about them. Yeah.
That's right. And I even think about how the language has evolved from social emotional learning to student wellness. Social emotional learning is classic, the emotional intelligence lessons you're talking about, classic SEL or social emotional learning, but really a focus on wellness is broader, isn't it?
Yeah. And I think about that. I think when I think of wellness or well-being, it encompasses so much more. It's the physical and the social emotional and the mental health and the life skills of sleep and nutrition, and that we need to think about and need to teach to our students to keep them healthy and well. So social emotional learning is a big piece of it, but it's not the only part.
That's right. So what does our programming look like today?
So we've really grown in aligning our programming, particularly 6 to 12 with our advisory program, which is new in our upper school, or not so new anymore, but it was new a few years ago.
It wasn't there in 2018 or 2020, was it?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And our human development program, and really beginning to weave those together, and then building in the TK to 5 so that they're well prepared and aligned for those lessons and can come in. We were just saying we've been teaching the emotional intelligence, the self-regulation, we've been talking about the power of words in our lower and primary school, and it'll be exciting to see them as those children and students come into the middle and upper school with some of the language that they already know and the skills that they've already learned, and to see if is this supporting their well-being as they move through middle and upper school and out into the world.
It's interesting. Some of the language, it seems both so familiar, and many of our listeners may say, "Oh, that sounds like school," and at the same time, you have a unique opportunity in your role to knit it all together. That's I think one thing as I think about the creation of this role is some of these initiatives might have had seeds planted but they were growing separately in different pots all over the campus. And you have an opportunity to knit it all together in something that's bigger than all the parts.
Yeah, it's so much about aligning both programming and people, right? Our constituents on campus who are thinking about this work. So working closely with the school counselors, our learning specialists, our folks in DEI realm, the school nurses, athletics, right? We all have a part to play in student well-being. And so bringing us all together to have to be aligned in our vision and mission around it.
It's you mentioned our mission and vision. I believe when we came out with our World Ready promise and revamped our mission statement 3 years ago, I think 2021, in this notion of exceptional readiness for extraordinary futures, our World Ready promise, and the idea of cultivating a critical skill set and a courageous mindset for each individual Viewpoint student. And we have those pillars of, the skill set is academic depth and inspired leadership. The courageous mindset is global citizenship and resilient identity. And I think at the time, because your position was new at the time, we thought, your position's about the resilient identity. But I think one of the learnings for me has been it's really not just about the resilient identity. Yes, it's about resilience, but it's also about reinforcing our academic depth. We have always thought that connected students perform better and therefore achieve greater academic depth. And certainly inspired leadership has something to do with well-being.
Absolutely. And I think just being world ready, right?
Yeah.
As a former college counselor, one of the things that I noticed was more and more, and this is a national trend, it was not unique to Viewpoint, was students either taking leaves of absences or withdrawing from school due to mental health issues. And colleges being overwhelmed in their counseling offices by students seeking mental health support. And so it was really about thinking preventatively. What skills can we teach to those students so that not only are they as well academically prepared as they've always been, but also emotionally prepared for life outside. And that to me is being world ready, is to being both academically prepared and emotionally prepared for the world so that they can flourish and thrive.
It's so interesting to me that you come to this work from over a decade of work in the college counseling office, probably one of the hot seats in the school as you help students to make their way on the journey to where they will land after Viewpoint. There's certainly a lot of attention on the college counseling process. You must have had a lot of experience dealing with students and parents who were in stressful situations.
Absolutely. And I found such joy in that work because I think what the college application process does is allows students to self-reflect on their journey and create a story that they have to put on paper in some form and share with others. And so to me, that was the real joy of college counseling. And then you have to let it go out into the world and control what you can control and not control what you can't control, right? And so that sort of acceptance and rejection both equally and being able to take those with grace and humility. So yes, stressful, and there's a beauty in it.
I hear that. And we've said a few times that your work is TK through 12. We've talked about the work with our youngest students. I was really struck by the word prevention because you were talking about some of the trends we've been seeing in colleges for a decade or more and helping students be prepared, be world ready as they leave Viewpoint. It sounds like that prevention starts here with our youngest students. Absolutely.
Beginning to care for their own well-being, right? And learning the tools and skills that are going to help them both here with the stressors of school and a high-achieving school like ours, right?
Yeah. Navigate a playground.
Yes,
navigate their homework.
Right?
Navigate their homework.
Right, all those are real. And I think being teen today is harder than it was in the past with the rise of technology and social media, with the the outside world really coming into their worlds. And so, giving and building those skills from our littlest so that they are prepared for middle school, upper school, and the world beyond.
It's exciting work, and it sounds like we're well underway fulfilling the vision that we had when we created the role. Well, let's talk about some of the trends that you're seeing in the student wellness space. I happen to know you're pursuing your doctorate degree from Arizona State University. Congratulations.
Thank you.
And your research focuses on a significant trend we're seeing across our country, which is the mental health issues and well-being gaps among students in high-achieving schools. Tell us about this issue that prompted your research and what steps schools can take to address it.
Yeah, so we work closely with Authentic Connections, which is based on the work of Sunia Luther and Nina Kumar, and they have been studying student well-being in high-achieving schools for the past decade or so. And I was really inspired by their work. So we do a survey with them, the student wellness survey, student resilience survey, and we've been measuring our students' well-being for the past 5 years,
Yes.
which has been exciting to see in that as we came out of the pandemic, as all schools nationally, we were seeing that crisis in mental health. We were seeing it here on our campus. We were seeing it everywhere. And the good news is I feel like we've really seen an improvement over the past couple of years. But that really sparked my work around focusing on what we can do to support students in high-achieving schools, because these students have been labeled at risk in the same way that students and children in poverty and children in foster care, because of a lack of thriving into adulthood. And so while their needs aren't exactly the same, they still need support. And so it was like, what can we do to be preventative? What can we do to be thinking about how to support these students and teach them healthy coping skills and strategies to care for their own well-being? Because I was doing research, I had to choose just one. And so I chose mindfulness, as I'm a yoga teacher and a certified mindfulness facilitator. So it felt like something that was both teachable and learnable, and a healthy coping skill that could support our students. So we did an intervention this year in the 11th grade, a particularly stressful year, with students where they learned different mindfulness techniques to support their well-being.
So Viewpoint students were your research participants.
They sure were. And I'm grateful to Viewpoint and the school and the students for allowing us to do that research here. It's both exciting, and I think it's going to allow us to share that knowledge with others who are looking to us to see what we're doing around our wellness here.
So it sounds like you've collected your data. What were some of your findings from your research?
Yeah. So again, it's hard to be a teen right now. It's one of the things that I really saw through the research. I also found that coping skills such as mindfulness can really, because teens are under these systemic pressures that sometimes we can't control, right? Whether that's college admissions problems, the selectivity of college admissions, whether that is world issues that we cannot control. That we can teach them coping skills in the moment, and they may not last a long time, but the more skills we teach them, the more they can care for their well-being. So what I have found so far, and I'm still analyzing the data as we speak, but the coping skills did help. And while teenagers will eye roll you right out of the room, no matter what you're teaching them. And so because we did 7 different lessons in mindfulness techniques, by then they were a little cranky with us. But then what I found is over half of them are using these skills outside of the classroom. And so they're using them before a test or to go to sleep or before a sports event. And so we taught them a skill that they really are using. So that was pretty exciting.
As you followed up, it's persisted. It stuck.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. And how will this shape wellness programming at Viewpoint, your research?
So this is the part that if you're a student listening to this podcast, maybe walk away for a moment any students in the room. I think that just like as parents, we sneak vegetables into our children's mac and cheese when they're little to make sure that they get the nutrition that they need. In the same way, we have to continue teaching these important skills to our students, even when they eye roll us. So to not be afraid to teach the skills to them, even if it feels like they're not getting it in the moment, because I think they're still getting it.
I think so, yes. And it's true. You can't just have an entire menu of comfort foods, right?
Yeah.
Sustainably.
Exactly. Yeah.
Some students would be gummy worms and,
Right.
be like, okay, no, we need a balanced diet.
Yep.
Similarly, we're here to give them an academically and otherwise rich program, and this is part of it.
Absolutely.
I've really been struck by Dr. Luther's research and that finding you mentioned, hearing when I first met her that students in high-achieving schools had been put in a risk category with students who, had really difficult, straitened circumstances. And it's promising to hear that the work we've been doing here at Viewpoint is both bearing fruit and that we're measuring it. I mean, one of the things I always appreciated about Dr. Luther and Authentic Connections is it's all highly valid research. So these are tested instruments. They're rigorously prepared. And yet, what advice would you give to students who are feeling overwhelmed by the pressures of a high-achieving environment?
Yeah. I think a lot about what they have control over and what they don't have control over, and knowing the difference between the two. And so really taking ownership over the things that they have control over, whether that's choices in their classes or the friends that they hang out with or the choices that they make about their well-being, and also understanding what they don't have control over and not trying to control the uncontrollables, right? Selective college admission, for example, right? You can do your best and send your application off to the world, but then you don't have as much control over it. You don't have a lot of control over the events that are happening in the world. So really taking ownership, and then also helping them actively care for their own well-being, getting enough sleep, getting enough exercise, eating enough nutritious foods. I've been teaching nutrition this past year, and so it's been really fun to talk to the students about, eating nutrient-dense whole foods, foods with one ingredient, right? And eating enough. I think that's what I find at the school is that sometimes they're not eating enough healthy food and drinking enough water, right? Those are two things we can do for ourselves. Setting boundaries and making good choices based on our happiness instead of like achieve, which at a high-achieving school can be a reality, and then creating balance and really learning how to create balance. And that goes back to the things you can control and the things that you can't control.
I heard from some 12th grade students that you took the nutrition class on a field trip.
We sure did. We went to the grocery store. It was very exciting. We scavenger hunted our way through. They did a great job.
Is that right?
It was really fun. Yeah, they had a good time.
Are they a little more world ready after the trip to the grocery store?
I feel like we did a lot of cooking skills, basic skills, etiquette skills in the classroom as well. They are certainly world ready.
I can definitely see that. And actually the students who were telling me about it, it stood out to them as a highlight, I think, because it was practical and valuable.
Yes.
So to your point, they were not complaining about the vegetables and the
Right.
mac and cheese. They
Yes.
were actually really grateful that
Yeah.
you had made it fun and meaningful. It's you're talking about things we can control. I mean, we're still emerging from a time when all of us had a lesson in things you can't control in terms of emerging from the pandemic. And 4 years on now, I believe, the research and the data that you're collecting, we can see how students have navigated through this period of time. Any insights from that? I know I remember watching our students in the teeth of the pandemic. The senior class were freshmen in the year that was remote. I remember listening to student senior speeches, and there seemed a lot more mental health topics at that time and the year immediately after. You pointed at some of the data on how things have changed. Any insights?
I think it comes back to sort of what you were saying, is that we don't need to convince people anymore, is that they're seeing the importance of caring for their well-being. And so I think it's now in the teaching them how to do that versus convincing them that it's important. That's what I've really seen. I mean, our students had to become so resilient during this time, and they did. And so, again, just going back to teaching them those healthy coping skills, healthy ways to deal with the stressors of their life and their world.
That's right.
Feels like what came out of it for me.
This 12th grade has been through some of the most accelerating times of change that we've probably seen in our lifetimes. And, I always think about it, you get one second grade year.
Yeah.
You don't choose the year that you're applying to college. You don't choose the fact that it was the year after a Supreme Court decision or a FAFSA debacle or anything that's like upending that. And the same thing is true for all of our students, TK through 12. So that skill of navigating the things you can't control and the things you can is important. Are there other trends you're seeing in student wellness?
Oh, really thinking about technology, right? We just feel like it's blowing up right now, where we're talking about cell phones and social media. Jonathan Haidt's book, Anxious Generation, the Surgeon General and the California governor made announcements this week around it. So how can we both help protect our students? And I think that's a parental issue, that's a student issue, ownership issue, that's a school issue. That feels like the big piece that's going to be on our plate. And I think we've already been actively thinking about it. We've taken a lot of initiatives. We have a chief innovation officer here who I know we've partnered closely around this. And so working on tackling those issues is going to be a big piece moving forward.
Definitely. We're sitting here in a summer when things are, again, changing rapidly, with the Surgeon General wanting to put warning labels on social media, which seems like a big announcement. And as you said, Jonathan Haidt's research. It's interesting to think about the partnership that this requires. I think maybe this first leg of the journey, it's been about what can the school take responsibility for. But of course, students' well-being is a shared responsibility with families and, of course, with the students themselves.
Yeah. I think luckily we have some good drivers in the field. We have students who are interested in this work, which is exciting. And yeah, so I think if we can pull on all those levers, I think we can make some movement in this area.
I do know with the issue of smartphones and phone-free schools, there's a budding student leadership initiative in our upper school. And so it'll be exciting to see what comes of that as we look at the year to come.
Yeah.
Like Viewpoint, forward-facing foundations have prioritized student wellness in their philanthropy. We're overjoyed that the Schumann Family Foundation recently demonstrated its support with a major gift to bolster our school's programming. How will this support allow us to build on the success of our wellness program?
Yeah, first of all, I just have to say I'm so grateful to the Schumann Family Foundation for their support of this important work. And their recognition of it is just, I have so much gratitude towards that. And I think this will allow us to continue to work TK to 12, which thinking about the alignment, the scope and sequence, the common language, the developmental levels of our students and really meeting them where they are. I think I mentioned this before, but just as a former college counselor, sending our students off into the world as emotionally prepared as they are academically feels like something that's just so close to my heart, and I know the school is so behind that initiative. And so that they really feel like they have some skills, especially, I know just from past experience that when they go off, they'll be like, oh, I knew how to write a paper and my roommate didn't have as many skills as I had coming from Viewpoint. And I hope that they can say the same thing about their emotional skills. Like, oh, I knew how to resolve a conflict with a friend or self-regulate myself. And as I watched, others have more trouble with that or not have the skills. And so I'm hoping that that's what we can send our students off with. And I think this allows Viewpoint to continue to be a leader in the area of student wellness. I think schools are already looking to see what Viewpoint's doing in this area. I've gotten calls and had others come to us saying, "What are you doing about this?" Or, "What's this? What does the role of director of student wellness look like at your school?" And so to continue to allow us to be a leader in this field, I think is really exciting.
Having wellness really knit throughout our program in a seamless way ends up being a real difference maker between what we offer in other schools, doesn't it?
Absolutely.
I'm thinking about the fact that I know the Schumann Family Foundation's also introduced us to some networks like the Semel Institute at UCLA, and I think there's a great opportunity for us to partner with other organizations, to partner with higher education, so that we can play our part as a leader in the space of TK-12, the space of independent schools, but also reach out and both learn and share our knowledge with others. I think we all know networks are powerful.
Absolutely.
So tell me a little more. What are the Student Wellness Ambassadors? What's that program?
So the Student Wellness Ambassadors make my heart so happy. Their mission is to be student ambassadors to support student well-being and destigmatize mental health issues. It really gives student voice to the wellness work that we're doing. They work closely with me on the various wellness initiatives, such as helping to present at assemblies. For example, this past year, they presented to the entire middle school on mental health and coping skills, which was great. Having that student-to-student peer leadership, I think, makes all the difference among students. They've also created programming for events like Wellness Day or Diversity Leadership Day. We have an interactive bulletin board that they help maintain. So they've done a lot of really good work.
Our younger students so look up to our older students. So they have a role in mentoring the younger students?
Absolutely, yes. And really sort of sharing their knowledge and that destigmatization piece of just being able to talk about it and name it and talk about things that maybe in a developmentally appropriate way that they've gone through that others might recognize in themselves. So,
I've been struck in hearing students speak in public about, a handful of voices who might talk about struggles that they've had. First of all, that it's okay to talk about that. And then secondly, that it seems like it's been a wide variety of student voices I've heard in recent years. Student athletes. It's not just one type of student. Who are the wellness ambassadors? Are they, who do they represent in our student body?
I think we bring students from all over, which is what's so exciting. I think there's students who are interested in both supporting their own mental health and well-being and also that of their peers. So, but yeah, we have from 9th graders to 12th graders, and we've even started a group in the middle school that's a small group but continuing to grow. So
that's great.
Yeah, I think we bring every kind of student in.
It sounds like that program is growing. How will the role of the wellness ambassadors evolve as the program grows?
So yeah, to continue to build it, 6 to 12, I think is really exciting. And then continuing to give them agency, responsibility, and opportunities to share with others. I think that's where the beauty comes in is their voices amongst other students. So getting them in front of other people, I think, is something I'd like to see continue to happen.
That also sounds like really powerful experiential learning. I'm thinking about the learning experiences that a student might have going through that program. If they do that in the middle school, they're taking those learning experiences on in the upper school, what kind of student leader they'll be. If they're having those experiences in the upper school and they take those experiences on to college, it doesn't just, it's not just limited to, the students who might be psych majors, is it?
Exactly. And I think that idea of we learn best when we're teaching, right? And so that when they are sharing it with others, they're also embodying it for themselves.
As you look ahead, next year, 5 years, beyond, what's your vision for the future of student wellness at Viewpoint? And how can our community continue to support these efforts?
First, I want to say I've felt so well supported by Viewpoint, by you and Bob, and just having the vision to make this happen. With the generosity of the Schumann Family Foundation to continue to support this work. So I feel like the community has been so terrific in holding up the work of student well-being. I see us moving swiftly towards TK to 12 alignment with our wellness programming, and then really cementing student wellness as an essential ingredient to our academic success of the student and future readiness of our students, and having it be a real pillar in our community.
It's interesting. We were talking today about the development of the program. What are you learning in your role as Director of Student Wellness?
What's exciting about that is it's my favorite topic. And so when I was a college counselor, I loved college counseling, but I wasn't that excited about learning about college admissions, right? It wasn't what I wanted to read about in my free time. As the Director of Student Wellness, it's all I want to learn about and read about and share with others. That's something about me is like when I learn something, I want to share it with the community. And so I think there's so many strands, and I think we're learning so much. I think there's so much research right at this very moment around well-being. And so sort of digesting that and then being able to share it and trying things out in appropriate ways that may support our community. I'm learning every single day.
It really is. I know I've been reflecting on our conversation today. I've really been learning how this isn't in a silo, this work. It's not isolated unto itself. It really runs throughout everything we do at the school. And so I guess maybe wellness is a mindset as much as a skill set. When we first started this work, we started talking about, a toolbox. Then you've been building out the toolbox of skills, and that's great. That's tangible. Kids can take them with them, but it's also a mindset that runs throughout everything we do, and therefore it touches on academic depth and leadership, really everything we do to help students be ready. Before we wrap, any final words of wellness for our listeners?
There's a quote I really like from Emily Nagoski, who wrote a book called Burnout, and it's that wellness is not a state of being, but a state of action. And I love this idea that we have to actively care for our own personal well-being and to take action to support it all the time, right? And so that's, again, is if we can teach these skills so that students know how to do that. Because sometimes it's easy to say, be well, take care of yourself. If we can really sort of drill down and be specific about things that research has shown that support our well-being, I think that's exciting. And then so important is that the parents are taking care of their own well-being. Right? They need to support themselves and take care of and actively care for their own well-being so that they can be better parents or, as good, excellent parents to their children and model that wellness. And same with teachers and educators and everyone in our community so that we're modeling that for our students.
That was really one of the big findings of Sunya Luther's research over the many years, wasn't it? That so much about the student's well-being depends upon the wellness of the primary caregiver.
Yep.
And so that's their parent or their teacher. And it means that our investments in wellness are very serious and results-driven.
Yeah.
I like that. Wellness is not a state of being, but a state of action. Could you leave our listeners with one action? What's a wellness practice that you might share that people could take with them as they go about their days after listening to this podcast?
Yeah. So again, as a yoga teacher and a mindfulness instructor, I think something that always works for me, and it's not going to work for everybody. That's why there are choices, and we teach them many different skills. But is breath work for calming the nervous system, and it's been proven and shown in many different ways that it can calm and regulate our nervous systems. And so, again, as part of the research I was doing for my doctoral degree, we taught 7 different mindfulness skills to the students in 11th grade. And one that was typically their favorite is one called box breathing. And so I'll teach that really quick. It's when you inhale for 4, and then you hold your breath for 4 at the top, and then you exhale for 4, and then hold your breath at the bottom for 4. And if that's too difficult, you can just trace a box with your mind on your inhale and exhale. So let's do it together, Mark, shall we?
Okay, let's do it.
Yep.
I was practicing as you were
Yes.
speaking, so here we go.
Okay, so we're going to inhale for 4, hold for 4, exhale for 4, hold for 4. And then if you continue doing that, it can, because you have to both concentrate on it and you're slowing and regulating your breath, it can really help calm our nervous system. So that seems to be a favorite with students and others.
Might be useful before a test.
Yes.
Or
a podcast.
Or a podcast. I know one of the favorite positive psychology practices I've discovered is just how good it is for us to practice gratitude. I have to tell you, I'm very grateful for you for joining me today. I'm incredibly grateful to the Schumann Family Foundation. As I think about how schools and organizations and students grow, the investments that the Ford Foundation grant had, we can look back over our shoulder and see what that has brought us. I think about this grant, and it means so much to have foundations and philanthropists investing in our work, saying, we see you, we get it, and we want it to grow. And so I'm very grateful for your leadership in helping it grow. And I thank you for being here today to share with our listeners this important topic. To our listeners and viewers, we're grateful for you, too. Thank you for joining us. Nothing we do at Viewpoint happens without the trust and investment of our community. And thanks again to the Schumann Family Foundation for supporting our wellness program and for sponsoring this episode. So this has been On Point. Until next time.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rebecca.
On Point is produced by Viewpoint School, an independent school in Calabasas, California, serving students in grades TK through 12. Today's episode is brought to you by the Schumann Family Foundation.
You also can find the On Point podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, the Viewpoint School channel on YouTube, and at viewpoint.org/onpoint.